A lie told often enough becomes the truth.
I keep thinking about the above quote whenever anyone claims that the Obama administration was scandal-free. How many more times are we going to hear people make this claim and see it go unchallenged? During an interview on CNN on Friday, former Secretary of State John Kerry, who's been in Iowa campaigning with Joe Biden, echoed the oft-repeated claim that the Obama-Biden administration lacks scandals.
I believe Joe Biden is the only person who has a set of relationships around the world, who has had this unbelievable breadth of experience as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee and then as vice president for 8 years, in an administration, by the way, which never had a whiff of scandal. Never had a whiff of scandal.
In this expose, we cover the Matt Margolis PJ Media article from January 10, 2020, where he counts down 10 of the biggest Obama administration scandals. As you watch, ask yourself this question. What would have happened if it were discovered that President Trump had or is doing the very same things? We will leave it up to you to determine for yourselves whether or not John Kerry was correct in saying that the Obama-Biden administration never had a whiff of scandal. Let's begin. The Senate seat for sale scandal.
Before Obama even took office, he was implicated in a scandal involving his soon-to-be vacant Senate seat. Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich had hoped to get a cabinet position for ambassadorship in exchange for appointing an Obama-backed individual to replace him in Seattle. Obama's top choice had been Valerie Jarrett, and he offered to appoint Jarrett in exchange for the position of Secretary of Health and Human Services in the president-elect's cabinet. But she eventually opted to follow Obama to the White House as his top advisor. To sweep it under the rug, the Obama transition conducted an internal investigation to determine whether the president-elect had done anything illegal. Naturally, they claimed everything was above board. Their investigation allegedly affirmed the public relations of the president-elect that he had no contact with the governor or his staff, and that the president-elect's staff was not involved in inappropriate discussions with the governor or his staff over the selection of his successor as the U.S. Senator. But this claim contradicts both criminal complaint against Blagojevich and numerous documents obtained by Judicial Watch through a Freedom of Information Act request.
The new Black Panther Party voter intimidation scandal.
In May 2009, the government was on the verge of victory by default in 2008 voter intimidation case against the new Black Panther Party. Attorney General Eric Holder inexplicably dropped the case in May 2009. When the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights investigated, the Obama-Biden administration refused to respond to requests from the Commission and Congress and fought subpoenas. Federal attorneys were instructed not to cooperate with the investigation, and then Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Tom Perez, who was the current chairman of the Democrat National Committee, lied under oath about who was involved in the decision to drop the case. If this wasn't a scandal, why did the Obama-Biden administration obstruct the investigation?
The illegal firing of an inspector general to protect a sex predator.
Also in 2009, Barack Obama illegally fired Gerald Walpin, the Inspector General for the Corporation for National and Community Service. Walpin's only crime was that he was investigating Obama's friend and donor, Kevin Johnson. Johnson had misused federal grant money for AmeriCorps by funneling it to his personal nonprofit group, paying for political activity and using it to pay hush money to underage girls he'd sexually abused. When Walpin recommended charges against Johnson, Obama, in violation of federal law, fired him. An investigation by Congress into legal firing was met with stonewalling by the Obama White House and withholding of documents. The Obama White House also deliberately misled Congress about the reasons for the firing. How exactly does breaking the law to fire an inspector general in order to protect someone who sexually abused underage girls not count as a scandal?
The green energy loan scandal.
More than 50 clean energy companies backed by the Obama-Biden administration went bankrupt or found themselves in major financial trouble. Is that not a scandal? Tell that to the taxpayers who footed the $80 billion for the green economy initiatives that went to companies that supported their campaign. The most well-known example of these companies that went belly up was Solyndra. Solyndra received more than a $500 million loan despite the fact the Department of Energy knew they were on the verge of bankruptcy. Obama can't claim ignorance on this one because he and Joe Biden were both personally involved in the decision-making process to determine who got loans. Also, only companies that donated to their campaign or other Democrats got these green energy loans. Worse, the Obama administration stole proprietary technology from companies that weren't picked to give it to their cronies that were. If this wasn't a scandal, why did the Obama administration stonewall Congress's investigation of the matter? When House Republicans subpoenaed documents for their investigation, the Obama White House fired back by claiming their request put an unreasonable burden on the president's ability to meet his constitutional duties. Sure.
Never had a whiff of scandal.
The SESTAC job offer scandal.
Barack Obama violated at least 4 federal laws back in 2010 by offering then Congressman Joe Sestak from Pennsylvania a job in his administration in exchange for not challenging Aaron Specter for the Democratic nomination for the U.S. Senate. Specter had recently switched from the GOP to the Democrat Party, and that switch was contingent on support from Obama. Obama's then spokesman, Robert Gibbs, wouldn't confirm or deny that any offer was made, but was never asked if Obama would resign after Sestak made his bombshell allegation, even after months of the Obama White House stonewalling a congressional investigation. Nor did they ask after the Obama White House finally admitted that Sestak was indeed offered a federal job to stay out of the election, but only that Sestak defeated Specter in the primary. The media was quick to accept the White House version of events, including the "everybody does it" excuse, and they accepted the White House claim that nothing improper happened. Even Republicans lost interest in pursuing the story after Sestak was defeated in the general election by Republican Pat Toomey. That's rich. Eric Holder says Bill Barr is too political to be Attorney General.
Never had a whiff of scandal.
Obstructing dozens of Inspector General.
Obstruction of justice was the standard operating procedure in the Obama administration from day one. In August 2014, 47 of 73 inspector generals wrote an open letter to Congress informing them that the Obama administration of obstructing investigations by not giving them full access to the information they needed to investigate properly. Such a letter was unprecedented, and the systematic corruption and obstruction of the inspectors general would have been considered an impeachable offense for almost any other president. In fact, that letter should have resulted in an appointment of a special counsel, but Attorney General Eric Holder, who famously called himself Obama's wingman, wasn't going to let that happen. Neither Holder nor Loretta Lynch, Obama's second Attorney General, ever appointed a special counsel despite ample times when one should have been appointed. Obama didn't just appoint attorneys general to lead the Justice Department, he appointed prosecutors to keep himself from being held accountable for corruption. The lack of outrage, thanks to a lack of media attention to the scandal, emboldened the Obama administration to impose new restrictions on the investigative powers of inspectors general. Can you imagine President Trump trying to get away with that today?
The Fast and Furious cover-up scandal.
The Obama administration sent 2,000 firearms across the border to trace them to drug cartels and lost hundreds of them. That's pretty darn bad, but it got a whole lot worse when a border agent was killed with one of those guns. In response to this revelation, the Obama administration stonewalled and obstructed the investigation into what happened. Attorney General Eric Holder falsely claimed to not know about the operation, and Obama personally obstructed the investigation by claiming executive privilege over documents requested by Congress. Not a scandal? Really? Attorney General Eric Holder was held in contempt of Congress in a bipartisan vote for obstructing the investigation. What more do you need to admit this was a scandal?
Never had a whiff of scandal.
The Benghazi attack cover-up.
The terror attack at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, not only threatened the Obama-Biden administration narrative that they'd been crippling Al-Qaeda and making progress in the war on terror, but it also threatened their re-election. So, they lied about it. They called it a spontaneous demonstration to hide the fact it was a pre-planned terror attack and that they were grossly incapable of defending themselves from such an attack.
We were misled that there were supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
So when Congress investigated, the Obama-Biden administration obstructed their investigation with vigor. They attempted to excuse their obstruction by saying they were launching an internal investigation, which was a complete joke because we know how their internal investigations go. State Department employees weren't allowed to testify, and Hillary Clinton deleted thousands of subpoenaed emails. That's called obstruction of justice.
The IRS Scandal.
Amazingly, liberals still pretend the IRS improperly targeting conservative and Tea Party groups wasn't a scandal. Lois Lerner, the former director of the IRS Exempt Organizations Division at the time, admitted it happened. Not only were Tea Party groups improperly targeted, according to documents obtained by Judicial Watch, but the whole scheme was orchestrated out of Washington, D.C. There was also evidence of White House involvement. IRS Commissioner Douglas Shulman was at the White House at least 157 times while the IRS was targeting Tea Party groups. Obama's cabinet members didn't even visit the White House that often. Some IRS employees even claimed that Obama himself requested the crackdown of Tea Party groups. There was certainly ample reason to suspect cooperation with the White House. The IRS was also exchanging confidential taxpayer information with the White House the year Obama and Biden were reelected.
The Iran Ransom Scandal.
A few short months after Obama had completed negotiations for the Iran nuclear deal, resulting in the lifting of sanctions and the unfreezing of billions in Iranian assets, the Obama administration made a shady payment to Iran of $400 million. The payment was made to the foreign currency and done under the cover of night. The payment also coincided with the release of 4 hostages and was done completely in secret. Not even Congress knew about the payments or the hostage exchange. An investigation began, and of course, it was met with obstruction by the Obama-Biden administration. Attorney General Loretta Lynch refused to answer questions from Congress about the payments. Details of the deal weren't classified, but the Obama-Biden administration hid key documents at a secure site to make access difficult. If this wasn't a scandal, why did he feel they had to hide information from Congress?
Never had a whiff of scandal.
So what are your thoughts? Do you take the position of John Kerry when he said that the Obama-Biden administration never had a whiff of scandal, or do you feel the opposite? Please let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. And if you like the content on this channel, please like and subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you do not miss any future content.